Hey, what's up, everybody? Circus here, coming at you with another Rogue Deck video, part three. We're doing this because it was requested. People like the first two parts so much that we thought we'd
Yeah,
come back and do parts three, four, five, six, seven, eight. We'll see how it goes. We're going to talk about every deck in the game, I guess. So,
I guess so. Every deck's a rogue deck besides like four.
right. And joining me, as you can see, is Rye. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, Circus?
I'm doing pretty good too. I was pretty surprised by how much people like parts one and two. So.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
I'm ready to get into this one. So, one of the ones that was requested, and I've seen quite a bit. I'm learning how to play against now on the KC Cup ladder and on the regular ladder is the new Lightsworn deck.
Yeah,
It's
Lightsworns.
yeah, it's
They're
got some cards from the event,
yeah,
right?
no, it's a very interesting deck. So Lightsworns, when they were first introduced, we had No Mortal Can Resist. And that was pretty much stopping that deck from ever accomplishing
Right,
anything.
right.
Um, but then, of course, No Mortal Can Resist got nerfed into the ground. Literally, no one plays anymore over Sealed Tomb. And they got 11 year, which is amazing.
Hmm.
Since now they don't even have to play Judgment Dragon. You still can if you want, but you probably don't want to play Judgment Dragon. Um, and that makes Eclipse Wyvern better as well. Letting search that 11 year. Not as good as a deck probably as BlueEyes, but you can still do it. And of course, it's always able to mill. Major downside, you really no space for back row, unfortunately.
Oh, none at all.
Yeah, because you're just going to be sitting there milling cards like crazy. You're going to try and get to your 11 year, to your Judgment Dragon, to whatever. You have easy synchros. That's always been something Lightsworns can do and can still do really well.
Lots of big beaters.
Oh yeah,
When they start
lots of
doing
big
their
beaters.
mills, you're kind of praying. It's like, okay, how many different
Yeah,
different Lightsworn names are in the
right,
grave
right,
right
right.
now, or how many 3,000 attack beaters are they going to have by the end of this turn?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely a deck where it is RG reliant on what you actually mill out and
Right.
what you get to keep. If you mill out all your techs, your lances, your Kribos, whatever you have, it's not that great. But if you mill out a whole bunch of Lightsworns and you have charge, so you can get your synchros really easily. You make things like fortunately every fantastic non-targeting
Yep.
banishments. Things like Zeta, things like Sam Register, all these cards are just they're amazing in their own right. And then you have a great finisher in 11 year, very fantastic. The only thing that's kind of really stopping them right now is people are still playing Seal Tomb. So that's unfortunate
Yep.
if you get hit with one of those. You don't have to worry about No Mortal Can Resist anymore, but a long time ago they now nerfed Spell Specialist, so you can't play a version like if this deck existed when Spell Specialist was at its broken state and you could play Grass and
Right.
all these
Right.
cards, this deck would probably be pretty good.
Well,
But because that was
they're still
nerfed,
playing that though, right? Spell specialist, still praying to get
I
that
believe we'll
grass
still
is
play it Spell
greener.
Specialist. Yeah, you can still play it
So
for
it
the
looks like
most
this
part.
version is playing it. It's got the
Yeah,
five
that
different
version's
spells.
gonna be
Yeah.
playing it. Yeah.
So
But yeah, you can see this version's very, you've got your one of, your three of, your two of. You're just trying to mill out your cards until you get to 11 year.
now,
If you don't have 11 year, Judgment Dragon, that's the free to play 11 year.
when you were saying, they got to get their mills going, their mill reliant, that Sylvans popped into my head. Is this the
Mm,
Sylvans of today?
kind of faster. It's like the inverse Sylvan, right? Like you're faster, like you want to get all your mills so you can immediately pop off. Where Sylvan was like, well, let me actually mill off the top of my head or my deck and do it on my opponent's turn, that kind of thing. I would say it's probably more like Shiranui, the old Shiranui with 30 cards when you were
Okay.
using the Whirl Flame and everything, but more like an actual archetype and not, using a Laval Trap in your Shiranui deck.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff. This one's actually got Jet Synchron in it. It's
Yeah,
got
no, you
glow up
wanna
bulb.
you wanna hit these, especially synchros that can float from the grave if you mill them.
Right.
You summon them right back onto the board. Free synchros for days. It's what the deck excels at.
Right. Uh, would you play this deck? I see it a lot, and I'm like, it just seems like one of those glass cannon decks, you know?
Yeah, it's a fun deck. I use it for mostly. Last time I used a Lightsworn deck, I think it was when the Turbo Duels were around.
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
just using them for fun. It was easy. It's easy to get dual level. It's just one of those decks where you can kind of like Cyber Dragons. You turn off your brain and you just click cards, and you'll win if you hit the right cards, and you'll lose if you don't hit the right cards, and it's whatever.
Right,
Just go on to the next match.
You can't really
There
say
is
it's skill based. Like,
yeah, I mean, like there's some skill that goes into it, like what synchros should go win or whatever. But compared to a deck like Crystron's,
that's what I was just thinking.
There
right?
isn't much going on here.
Or like a
You're,
ritual
you're
beast
hitting
deck.
cards. Yeah, you're hitting cards. You're milling cards. If you draw 11 year, it's like when do you drop your 11 year? It's about it for the most part, or your Judgment Dragon if you're playing that instead.
Right, and what's the 11th? Level 7 synchro Michael, is that what it is?
Yeah, Michael's really nice because he banishes target into banish, which is really good against Sun Saga, for example. Cards that are really hard to destroy in this meta, so it's really good against that. Yeah, the only problem is you'll see it a lot. People go into Michael and then mill themselves out totally.
Right,
you got to be careful. You don't want to mill yourself out.
Yeah, I guess if you have the stuff, play it, right? But I wouldn't go out of my way to build this.
No, and most people that go far with this end up struggling kind of in the top 32 in most tournaments that you see. People who top just get lucky for the most part. Not lucky like skill-wise, but lucky with like their mills. And then once they hit like that top 32 point, their luck starts to run out a little bit.
Right.
I think the highest I've seen recently was like top 16 or something.
Okay.
It's definitely something I'd play more for fun than try and be competitive with. Not saying that you can't, if you have the 11 years, that's super expensive, right?
You better be playing
the Eclipse.
them.
You have the Eclipse of UR, easy searches. I'd probably play 2 or 3 Eclipse. You could really do some damage with 11 year. But again, it's all RNG based.
Yeah, it's the consistency that hurts it in the long run.
Yeah, 30 card decks, no fun.
Yeah.
Especially right now with people playing Shadow Game all over the place. Oh boy.
Oh yeah. Real quick, I was playing a guy online today. He was playing like a stall burn deck with Merrick, no Shadow Game. I was guessing that he was trying to farm the skill, but
yeah, either that or he's playing something like right back at you or something like that. Another meme skill.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. All right, next deck. BlueEyes. This is a deck.
BlueEyes White Dragon. Yeah,
it comes and goes. It comes and goes. Konami would just love it to stay around forever.
Oh, for sure. It's not even a deck that I want to say is a rogue deck, because if there was a tier 4, this deck would definitely be tier 4.
A tier 4.
Yeah, because like the deck itself, it actually has amazing matchups in the current meta. It has an amazing Crystron matchup. It has an amazing Ritual Beast matchup. It has an amazing Dark Magician matchup. There's just this one common denominator between all those. Once BlueEyes gets going, it's nearly unstoppable by any deck. The problem is getting it going. It's like having this really nice car, but a really crappy engine that just sometimes turns on, sometimes you got to go jump it. It's just a pain to kind of get going. It's really nice. You have Card of Consonance, which is really nice, and you're basically playing 6 tuners. You're playing your 3 stones, and then your sages will search your stones, and then you can Card of Consonance, and you draw 2. That's amazing. The problem is, sometimes you draw 2, and then it's like, okay, well, I get to summon BlueEyes at the end of my turn, which means Sage is going to be sitting there in attack mode as 0 attack.
Right.
I can't synchro, so that's unfortunate. Or you run into situations where like you'll draw the Card of Consonance, but you don't get any tuners. You get like your Cosmo Brain and your BlueEyes, and it's just sitting there as a dead card. Or you'll draw all your BlueEyes in your hand, and then sure you have stone, but then what's your stone going to summon? Everything's in your hand. It's just hard because you can send your tuners from the hand to the grave, but you can't do anything once you get those BlueEyes in your hand. All you can do is Cosmo Brain, and it's not exactly a huge power pick. We have seen. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it seems like one of the cons of the deck though is all of its destruction targets.
Yes. So there's been, I think Mako played it a while ago in Battle Phase, where people started playing 11 year in the deck as well. They'll do one of those, what are that guitar card, whatever, the guitar of summoning dragon, or I don't know what it's
Jack
called.
Black card.
Yeah, that one. They had 11 year to hand with that. And then 11 years really, really strong in the deck. But again, that's just 3 more bricks that you're adding to the deck that's already so inconsistent that some have just decided not to go that route. So it's just really interesting because this deck, it's literally like once it gets going, it really feels like no deck can touch it. it's just getting to that point has always been a problem so many times. We've seen in a best of 3 a very close competitive match, and then game 3 BlueEyes bricks, and that's it.
Well,
And
any deck
I don't know.
that loses hard to Luna Lights, come on now.
Yeah, the deck does struggle to get over 3K attack.
Well, they just get out their boss monster, right? You can't target it, and then
you
it's
can't
like
target it, can't do
3,500,
anything.
4,000 attack.
Yeah, it's hard. That's why you still see people play Gigantic Castle, just get those little bit of extra attack points to get over 3K, because it is a nightmare to try and get over 3K with this deck. It's not easy to play things like World Legacy Clash, because you need the space for consistency. And when you're putting so much space into consistency, and then of course people play things like Regeki Break and stuff like that, which works really well for discard. It's hard to play a card that helps with the attack points, if you would. That being said, if you're able to get your Spirit Dragon on the board turn 1, it is so hard to play around. If they were able to consistently make Spirit Dragon turn 1, it's like synchro summon it every game, this deck would be insane to keep in line.
Is it kind of like a Crystron deck where maybe they have room for 30 cards? Because Neg will always say, yes, we're playing 30 cards in Crystrons, but it's because we can.
The 11-year version plays 23 to 24 sometimes, I see. It is one of those decks that does have a lot of draw potential. The Sage searches a card. Your Card of Consonance is searching cards, whatever that guitar card's called. I keep forgetting. Discards to draw 2 cards.
Right.
I wouldn't go too overboard though, because again, your opening hand is really important in this deck. Where Crystrons, there's so many different ways to start. As long as you end on your board, you don't really care. I wouldn't go over like 22, 23, I would say.
Okay. All right, then. Oh, God. Are you ready for the next one?
I'm so ready.
Oh, God. Here we go. Stromberg. I don't even know what to say. Stromberg. We see this all the time.
Stromberg.
It's like king of the memes, king of the rogue deck. It's the Rodney Dangerfield, if you guys get that reference. Just no respect.
There's a reason that this deck is known as the the deck that kills those who cannot read, right? It's one of those decks where it heavily punishes misplays.
Right.
Every rogue deck to a degree punishes misplays, because if you don't know what you're doing against a deck, you can't be as effective. It's just, it's not your fault. It's the first time you see it in the deck. Now you're going to learn for the next time you see it. The thing with Stromberg, though, is it is very punishing if you do not read it. Things like attacking in the Stromberg is very devastating. You lose your monster.
Hilarious.
You lose life points for doing that. Hilarious, yeah. Things like trying to target or destroy the castle. Of course, you can't target it, but if you try to destroy it,
with the pumpkin
out targeting,
yeah,
and the pumpkin's on the field, you can try and destroy it, and then nothing will happen, and then you sit there and you're like, wow, I just wasted, a really good effect. So that's why kind of Stromberg kind of shines when it comes to misplays, because it's one of those decks that heavily punishes misplays. But beyond that, if you know what you're doing against the deck, it has had some interesting kind of additions. Barkion has been added to the Synchro deck, which is really cool, allowing you to stop trap cards for banishing 2 cards from your graveyard. Selection box card, and I haven't really seen any other deck pull it off. But no, this deck's ridiculous, because if you open 1 castle and 1 wielder, you can go into like almost all your synchros just based off that. It's really nice. The deck itself is like, it's weird, right? Because it's one of those decks where it does play a lot of cards, but it has 6 copies of Stromberg, and then Stromberg itself will mill 10 cards at the beginning of your turn. So,
that's what kills the deck, right? I mean, you just don't know what you're going to lose.
Yeah, it kills it, but at the same time, not really.
But it helps the Maju.
Because most players, like, once they get 1 castle on the board, right? You get castle, you get princess, and you get pumpkin. That's really all you need. Most people don't go for the glyph to pop back row, although you can. Most people just prefer to have that open slot for a wielder or a Grand Maju.
Right.
But, it usually once you get your castle resolved, you don't have to really worry about what you mill, unless you get, like, all your Grand Majus or something ridiculous like that. Then, that's just, it is what it is at that point. The greatest thing with that kind of affects his deck is opening the castle. Yes, you have 6 copies, but most play 25, 26 cards. if you don't open castle, this deck just doesn't really function what
No.
it's supposed to function. You're just sitting there waiting until you draw your first castle at that point. Because other than that, it's just a bad synchro deck at that point if you don't get your castle.
This deck's win con a lot of times is having people misplay against it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, like, if you don't misplay against Stromberg, there's still, like, as long as the player is able to get princess and they're attacking your life points directly, there are scenarios where you just can't do anything because your deck, either you didn't draw the right cards to take out the carriage into taking out castle, because the deck is forcing, even if you know what you're doing, it's forcing you not to swing in and not do anything until you're able to get around the castle.
All I know is if they banish 10 cards and then set a monster, do not attack into the monster.
What if it's a bait though? You don't know. What if it's just a wielder?
You could probably deck them out at some point.
You
if you're just
can
patient.
deck them out, probably. Yeah.
Oh, we've seen that quite a few times. That monster.
It's an interesting deck, and it's one of those decks where, again, like every rogue deck gets misplayed against it. It's just this one is so obvious because it's so immediate. Like, well, you just popped your monster and you lost a lot of life points, and you're probably gonna lose now.
Yeah, I mean, we can make entire highlight videos out of misplays against this deck.
For sure. Because, like, there are times other decks, you're playing them and it's like, oh hey, my opponent misplayed, but it's such a subtle misplay that maybe they don't even realize it.
Right.
With Stromberg, it's immediate. You're like, oh shoot, like,
yeah, I can't believe
what have I done?
I almost feel like we got to shout out Hexy, GoldenEye, and Frost for keeping this deck alive over this time.
That's some dedication.
Yeah, they've been keeping it going. All right, moving on to the next one. People really love this deck. It used to be free to play. Now you got to go into a box a little bit, and that's Aromages.
Super interesting deck. It's
Is it? Is it interesting?
It can be.
Is it?
It kind of stalls a lot in the same vein that Dark Lords used to stall in, minus the effect negation. You don't really get that much effect negation compared to what old Dark Lords used to do. But you can gain a lot of life points with this deck, and all the monster effects that go along with that are kind of amazing. Being able to banish from either graveyard, being able to stop monster effects, being able to bounce back row cards. These are all really good effects on their own, and there's multiple cards within Aromages that trigger, all you gotta do is gain life points, and that's like half this deck does is gain life points.
Right.
So it's really good in that regard. The major weakness in the deck is it doesn't really have a lot of disruption. So if it gets you Black Rose, you're gonna get Black Rose. Like, you can't do much about it. I see our Serenity plays the Solemn Scolding, which is a really interesting tech card in here because I think it's like 3,000 life points.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This deck doesn't care,
but you can afford it.
Yeah. The only major downside is that you can only have one set card. So, and again, that doesn't even matter because all the cards are face up. All of them are continuous trap and continuous magic cards to use all their effects. That's why you see this deck kind of struggle against like a big Sun Saga pop or a Dark Magician that goes first. I believe Dark Magician, a lot of people claim that that's the worst matchup, and I totally see it. If a Dark Magician goes first, flips up 2 negations, they banish a back row card, and then they have 2 more negates for all your other stuff. It's very difficult to play around that, and it's probably the worst thing is getting Black Rosed. once you lose an established board, it's really hard to kind of revive from that position in this deck, which is why I really like the Scolding. That really plays around that, assuming you draw that card. You can really get that card going.
Well, that's kind of the problem with decks like these is he's playing 7 monsters and then the rest is all spells and traps.
Right.
I think it's better to have the effects and everything built into your monsters.
For sure. The thing is, though, a lot of these cards do search.
Right.
So gardening and the traps. So it is.
But they all have conditions like when your life points are lower than your opponent's, and they declare a direct attack, and it's a full moon, and all this stuff. And,
on a Wednesday at locals, if your opponent is playing Noble Knights, you may activate this effect, immediately win the duel.
Yeah, it's not like when this creature is summoned, bring this, you bring your field spell from your deck or whatever.
It is definitely a slower deck. It's got a lot of hidden potential. We do see this deck, not very many top, but when they do top, they tend to go top 4, top 16, but very rarely do they, go beyond that point.
It's because no one's
It's just
sided
hard.
against them. No one
It's no
expects it.
one-sided. It's just
Straight
hard, man.
flush. Straight flush.
When Black Rose and Sun Saga and Dark Magician are like these top boss monsters in the meta, they all like single-handedly stop you. It's
Right.
hard. It's hard. It really is.
I don't know. Again, this is one of those decks. I guess you can get most of it for a lot of it. You can get for free. The original.
A lot
core.
of you get for free, and then there's really only one box I think you have to go into.
And it's a mini too, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's easy to get, but
there are better free to play
right
decks out there. This is one of those decks where if you want to like grind out your opponent and make them, if you love Metaphys, if you love Ritual Beast, if you love those style of decks, you'll love Aromages.
Right. Because I was mentioning that before we did the video. It's kind of like Metaphys where it takes a little while to get it going, but once it gets going, it's really annoying to play against,
It really is, yeah, for sure.
They're constantly summoning monsters. They got all kinds of life points, and oh my god. Yeah. All right, and the final one, you were debating if this was even worth talking about. I like it because I played it way too much during the last KC Cup, and it's one of the decks I have. Luna Lights. I mean, it's still a thing, right? No,
it's maybe you see it from time to time. So Luna Lights was interesting because when it came out, it was just one of those decks where people just misplayed so much against them. It was almost as bad as Stromberg. They would just leave a monster in attack mode, and then they would just get OTK the following turn because now your monster's attack is 0. I'm going to swing into you directly. I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to swing twice, and you're going to die. You can have 3 monsters. Doesn't matter. I'm going to choose one, and I'm going to just boop boop boop. And that's it. That's the end of it. It also came out during a meta where BlueEyes and Dark Magician were like tier 1, I think. Which is hilarious because I don't think BlueEyes was ever tier 1. I'm being totally honest with you. And both of those decks struggle we just talked about BlueEyes struggling against this deck. Dark Magician can't do anything unless they go Ayatamias, basically. Against this deck. Their circle can't do anything. They can't target. So, they struggle against this deck. But unfortunately it's received some nerfs. Grit being the big one, being nerfed. You can't just pass and, say, okay, I'm going to start playing this game at turn 3. Well, you can, but you're going to be able to summon one monster, and that's not going to be enough
it's terrible.
to do your Luna Light stuff. So that's been a huge kind of. I think some people still play Grit and just go Grit and then just special summon one monster and say whatever, we're good. But I don't think that's helping the deck out very much. So I see here that you've got the Neos build on there.
It's okay.
I think most people have stopped playing the Neos build. It's funny because in my favorite hero Neos builds and stuff, people have started playing the Fox just to get that's like the best part of Luna Lights, the sending your opponent down to 0 attack for a turn. That's like the best thing the deck provides right now. Obviously the boss monsters are still really strong if you're able to get to them. It just sucks having to go turn 1, and if they have any counter to it, like if they're playing Cyber Dragon, that's
what I was gonna say. This just gets wrecked by Cyber Dragon,
which is a very popular deck. Will always be a popular deck until Cyber Style basically gets nerfed into the ground.
It's just non-targeting destruction just kills this deck. There's just no way out of it. Like if you're playing Ritual Beast, let's say you break down your monster, you go into Winda, they destroy the Winda, you can summon another monster. Maybe you don't die that turn, right? Neg was talking to me about Crystron's, how they can kind of like avoid the Cyber Dragon OTK too, and that's why he loves that deck so much. But this deck has no way to stop it.
No, if you put all your resources into these boss monsters that get blown up anyway because of non-targeting destruction, and it's not just them, so there's so much non-targeting right now in this game. Sun Saga, all the Mayakashi monsters, there's so much and there's more to be added. That's just not enough to kind of be your sole aspect. That being said, I've seen builds with Sphere Kribo be successful where they lose their boss monster, then they have follow-up and they swing for lethal and all that. I think ultimately this deck is just one of those decks where wait for XCs, wait for links, because there's future support that makes this deck really, really good, beyond just being a one-trick OTK deck that once people kind of figure out like, okay, I know what you do now, they're not going to fall for it anymore. They're just gonna summon in defense or whatever. I do think it's still a good ladder deck.
Yeah, it's
Because
definitely is.
people aren't gonna know, right? Like you summon your stuff in attack mode, and you're like, okay, your turn, and then you Crimson Fox OTK, and they're like, like, come on now, and
Right.
then it's not best of three where it's like, all right, well now I know what you're doing, so you're not gonna win anymore.
Well, I use this deck in this Casey Cup, the Grand Tournament one. I got to like DL 24 with it, but once you get to
Yeah,
those last two levels, everybody's
everyone's
playing
playing meta.
Cyber Dragons, Dark Magician. I had to switch over to the
Those are
Neos.
like the three best decks right now are probably Cyber, Dark Magician, and Blackwing. So
Oh, and
if you're facing those, what are
you're
you gonna
not
what are you
winning.
supposed to do?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, the Dark Magician, sure, but the other two, like, what are you gonna do?
right.
They're gonna destroy you.
Well, another one. This will have to be in another Rogue deck video. 'Cause I'm surprised it wasn't requested, but another auto loss for this deck. Super heavy Samurai.
Oh God.
Because
Oh
you go
man.
to attack in Giga Gloves, you're screwed. you know,
Yeah.
it's
Super heavy is just another OTK deck, and
right
in the kind of hierarchy of OTK decks, I think Ludolight's like one of the worst ones right now.
because it's hard to once you use all your resources to get into your boss monsters. There's no way once they're wiped out.
Mhm.
It takes a few turns to get the resources back to go back into them,
Right.
and by then you're
Well,
dead.
yeah, like compare the OTKs, right? This tech OTKs by attacking a face-up attack mode monster twice.
Right,
Super heavy just swings into you twice. That's a direct attack through monster
right.
effect. You can't stop that unless you have a Chiroid, basically.
And if you're playing the Sphere of Karibo version, you're screwed because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that does nothing.
I switch you to defense. I'm already in defense. What are you gonna do?
Exactly.
And then of course Cyber Dragon decimates your field and then swings into you with little weak monsters, which
Right.
feels really bad. And then Black Wings, they do the same thing, but with higher attack monsters.
Right.
So in the hierarchy of OTK decks, this definitely falls short. A lot of the hype was just people didn't know how to play against it, and then once they realized it's super easy to counter, put your monster in defense, and they literally cannot do anything.
Right.
What else are you supposed to do?
I don't know. I still love just playing the deck. I like the play style of the deck, discarding cards, bringing them back, and
Yeah. No, it's an amazing ladder deck.
It's fun to play. But yeah, it just doesn't have what it
easy
takes.
cog. Every OTK deck is the same thing. It's easy cogs. You turn your brain off.
Right.
You OTK your opponent. If you don't go to the next game, who cares? Just keep
Right,
going
just
until
keep
you
going,
get easy
yeah.
king of games. Oh,
Yeah.
that's all the OTK decks.
Yeah, if you take this into a tournament setting, you're not going to do very well. But
Probably not. I think the last time I saw Lunalight, they got to top 32 and immediately got crushed.
yeah, like you said, once people learned how to play against it, it wasn't that bad.
For sure.
All right, that's our roundup for this edition of the Meta Analysis Rogue Decks, Volume 3. So,
Volume 3.
Yeah. So if you guys liked it, you know what to do. Twitch, Twitter, Discord. Play in our tournaments. They're a lot of fun. Ryi calls a lot of them. He's great at doing it. Always makes it really interesting and
I
fun.
love to be proven wrong. If you guys play these
Oh, there
decks
you
and
go.
you think they're tier 1 and they should be able to win, come on Monday, play one of these decks, prove me wrong, win the tournament. I love being proven wrong.
Yeah, always a lot of fun. Check out the battle phases. Check out our Tri-Links tournament. That's our 3 versus 3 tournament. It's a lot of fun too. So we're going to get out of here, but thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, YouTube.
See ya.